So I hope you're ready for this. Our first speaker. She gave me a wonderful introduction. Kind of think she's following in Jim's footsteps. So Anandi Thompson. Anandi Thompson is first and foremost a global citizen. She is also a holistic health counselor, a yoga teacher, a studio owner, a New Englander, and an Air Force veteran, a corporate survivor, a second-degree black belt, a poet, a hiker, and a trail biker. Princess mom of a son with Down syndrome, an author, a loving partner, an expressive dancer, an avid reader, a curious conversationalist, a garden goddess, a travel enthusiast, a tree hugger, and a cupcake camper, and a kitchen queen who loves living in Florida with her husband and near their son who is now living independently. The heart of Anandi wishes for global health, happiness, and peace on earth. Today, she would like you to get to know her better. The title of her speech is Life Highlights, and this is in the Pathway Motivational Strategies, and this is her icebreaker. Let us welcome Anandi Thompson.
And just to let you know, it's 4 to 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So good evening, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guest. I'd like to start off by having everybody just take a deep breath in, exhale with a big sigh. So I'd like to share my life highlights with you using a childhood game that we played in school called Show and Tell. So I'm going to show you an item and then I'm going to tell you about my life through this item. So the first item I want to show you is a picture of the town that I grew up in called East Hampton, Massachusetts, in Western Massachusetts. This was a small mountain town in the valley at the base of Mount Tom. I loved living in this town because my house was literally at the base of Mount Tom and I could climb up the mountain and over to a park that was there that had all sorts of roller coasters and rides and things that I loved and appreciated. And then I would call my mother to come pick me up because I didn't want to walk back down the mountain. The other reason why I loved living in East Hampton is because it's where I started my journey as a global citizen. My parents, very unlikely for them to do this, but they invited a Swedish exchange student to come live with us for a year for her high school, for her senior year. She was 17 and I was 7. I loved that year. She brought over all these exchange students, German, Norwegian, Danish, into our house. I loved the accents. I loved the people. It was so much fun. My next highlight I want to share with you is when I was 16, I made one of the best decisions of my life. I joined the United States Air Force. My father had to sign a waiver because I was so young, and I ended up going into boot camp right before my 18th birthday. This is a graduation book they give you from boot camp, and just to prove that I actually went through it, here is a picture of me circled in red. So after boot camp, I spent 2 years in Russian school learning from Russian defectors. So I wanted to teach you how to say a word in Russian. So this word, "До свидания," says goodbye. So this is called transliteration using our letters, and this is their Cyrillic alphabet. So everybody say with me, "До свидания." До свидания. You're all on mute. It's okay.
До свидания.
До свидания. So now you know how to say goodbye in Russian. After 2 years in Russian, I was stationed at Hahn Air Base, Germany. This is a booklet from Hahn Air Base in West Germany, which doesn't exist anymore. So when I was in Germany, I was a cryptologic linguist specialist interpreting and translating Russian. I also became the head of the Russian director of training for new Russian recruits, which is where my love for training and development started. So my next highlight is my marriage. So this is my husband, Bob, and I met him in Germany when I was working at our secluded remote area called Metro Tango. I was working in a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, no windows, but a place you can work on top secret materials. So I was working head down, and in walks new recruits, and I looked up and saw the most beautiful man I ever saw in my life. He looked at me, we locked eyes, game over, that was it. We spent the next several years living in Germany, traveling all throughout Europe, and the last thing we did in Europe was get married in Basel, Switzerland. We came back to the States, worked at a national security agency at NSA at Fort Meade, Maryland, and lived in Maryland for 4 years until I made the next great decision of my life. Another great decision was moving to Florida. We moved to Florida and didn't realize this, but I was pregnant when we moved to Florida. So 5 months after moving to Florida, we had my son, Eric Thompson. This is a picture of my son when he was about 4 weeks old. My husband, my son, and you baseball players, anybody know who this is? I know John does. Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson used to come to the hospital to visit all the families and the sick kids. So my son was on life support for 6 weeks, and during that 6 weeks, it did not look good for him. The doctors kept saying that he might not make it. So I decided to write a book because I wanted to remember what it was like to be a mother, because I was clear I wasn't going to do that one again. So 6 weeks later, he got off of life support, and 2 years later, I published my book called Eric's Gift, A Mother's Discovery of Unconditional Love on the 47th Chromosome. Soon after that, a condensed version of my book got into 2 of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books called Tears and Laughter. And now my son lives independently in Lakeland, Florida. He's happy, he's healthy, he's 26. And when this coronavirus is over, he'll get a job. So the last highlight I wanted to talk to you about was my career. You know, I was in the Air Force. I worked for corporate after that for 14 years. Then I had a retail photo studio with my husband for several years. And in the last about 10 years, I have been a holistic health counselor. But my ministry came when I was in Germany, when I discovered yoga out of a book. I spent 2 years learning yoga myself, and when I came back to the States, I found a spiritual teacher called Gurudev. Gurudev means spiritual teacher, Yogi Amrit Desai. And so Yogi Amrit Desai 2 years ago gave me the name Anandi, which means bliss. And how could you be a global citizen? Now, how do I say this? As a global citizen, I now have a Hindu name of Anandi. So with that, I'd like to end, and in our lineage, we end our classes by saying Jai Bhagwan, victory to the spirit. Thank you.